They scroll through hundreds of posts every day. They watch stories unfold across glowing screens in the early morning and late at night. They read the comments, the debates, the celebrations, the heartbreaks, the announcements, and the humble brags. But they never add their voice to the noise. Not once, not ever. In a world where everyone seems desperate to be seen, to be noticed, to be validated by the attention of strangers, some people have quietly chosen to remain invisible. And there is something beautiful, something powerful, something deeply meaningful hiding in that silence. Something most people never stop to consider. You have probably met someone like this. Maybe you are someone like this. The person who has social media accounts but has not posted in months, maybe years. The one who watches but never performs. The one who knows everything happening in their friend circle but reveals almost nothing about themselves. The one who could tell you exactly what their cousin ate for dinner last Tuesday, but would never dream of sharing their own meal. And if you have ever wondered what is really going on inside their minds, you are about to find out, because the psychology of those who never post is far deeper than most people realize. It is not about shyness. It is not about laziness. It is not about being technologically challenged or out of touch with modern culture. It is something else entirely, something that speaks to the very core of who they are and what they value in this noisy, attention-hungry world. Something that reveals a different way of being human in the digital age. Let us begin with the most fundamental truth. People who never post are often the deepest thinkers you will ever meet. They are the ones who process life differently. While others are rushing to capture the moment, they are busy actually living it. While others are crafting the perfect caption, they are sitting with their thoughts, turning experiences over in their minds like smooth stones in their hands. While others are checking how many likes they received, they are reflecting on what the experience actually meant to them. This is not an accident. Research in personality psychology has consistently shown that people high in trait introspection tend to pull back from external validation-seeking behaviors. They have a different relationship with their own experiences. They do not need the outside world to confirm that their experiences are real or meaningful. They already know. Deep in their bones, they know. The sunset is beautiful, whether anyone else sees it or not. The meal is delicious without a photograph to prove it existed. The moment matters because it matters to them, not because it matters to an audience of followers and strangers scrolling mindlessly through their feeds. Think about that for a second. In a culture that has taught us to measure the worth of our experiences by likes and comments and shares, these silent watchers have somehow maintained a different operating system. They have preserved something that many people have lost without even realizing it was gone. The ability to find meaning internally. The capacity to validate their own experiences without needing external confirmation. The freedom to live moments fully without the pressure of documentation. This does not mean they do not care about connection. Quite the opposite is true. Many people who avoid posting online actually crave deep, authentic relationships more than most. They hunger for real intimacy in ways that surprise people who assume their silence means indifference. But they have come to understand something important, something that changes how they approach human interaction. The connections that happen on social media are often shallow by design. A like takes 1 second and requires no thought. A comment takes 10 seconds and is usually forgotten minutes later. A share takes even less thought than that. But a real conversation, a real moment of understanding between two people, that takes time and presence and vulnerability and sustained attention. And that is what they are holding out for. That is what they refuse to trade for the quick dopamine hit of digital engagement, there is also a protective element to this silence that deserves exploration. People who observe without participating often have a heightened sensitivity to judgment, not because they are weak, but because they are aware. They notice things that others miss. They see how quickly public opinion can turn against someone. They watch a person get praised one day and torn apart the next for something they said years ago. They observe the pile-ons, the cancellations, the way a single post can define someone forever. And they think to themselves, why would I put myself in that position? Why would I hand over that kind of power to strangers on the internet? This is not fear. This is wisdom dressed up to look like caution. This is intelligence applied to risk assessment. This is someone who has done the math and decided the equation does not work in their favor. Consider the difference between someone who is afraid of water and someone who respects it. The first person avoids the ocean out of panic and anxiety. The second person understands what the ocean can do, has studied its currents and tides, and makes thoughtful choices about when and how to enter it. Silent watchers are often in that second category. They are not hiding from social media out of ignorance or terror. They are simply choosing not to swim in waters they have observed carefully and decided are not for them. They have made a calculated decision based on what they have seen happen to others. But here is where things get interesting, because the choice to remain silent in a world that demands noise comes with its own unique challenges. And those challenges reveal even more about the psychology at play here. Living quietly in a loud culture creates a kind of invisible friction that most people never think about. There is social pressure, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle at all, to participate in the sharing economy. When everyone else is posting vacation photos, the silent watcher gets asked why they did not share anything from their trip. When colleagues are connecting on various platforms and sharing work achievements, the person who stays quiet can be seen as standoffish or disengaged, or not a team player. When friends are posting birthday wishes publicly, the person who sends a private message instead might seem like they care less. The world has come to expect participation, and abstaining from it can feel like rebellion even when it is simply a preference. This creates an interesting psychological tension that silent watchers must navigate constantly. On one hand, they often feel confident in their choice. They know why they do what they do. They understand the value of privacy and the cost of constant self-exposure. They have made peace with their decision and feel good about it most of the time. But on the other hand, they live in a society that increasingly treats social media presence as a prerequisite for belonging. A society where not posting can be interpreted as not caring. And that disconnect can be lonely, even for someone who has chosen solitude intentionally. Let us talk about that loneliness for a moment, because it is real, and it matters, and it deserves honest acknowledgement rather than dismissal. There is a difference between being alone and being lonely, and understanding that difference is crucial here. Many people who never post are perfectly content with solitude. They enjoy their own company. They find fulfillment in activities that do not require an audience. They have rich inner lives that do not need external validation to feel meaningful. But even the most contented introvert can sometimes feel the sting of disconnection when they realize that social bonds are increasingly being maintained through platforms they have chosen not to participate in actively. Imagine knowing that your friends are planning events through group chats you are not part of because you do not use that app. Imagine watching relationships deepen between people who interact daily online, while your own friendships, conducted the old-fashioned way through phone calls and in-person meetings, require more effort to maintain. Imagine realizing that inside jokes have formed that you will never understand because they originated in comment threads you never saw. Imagine being forgotten, not because anyone means to exclude you, but because you have simply become less visible in a world where visibility is everything. This is the hidden cost of watching from the shadows, and it is a cost that silent watchers have calculated and accepted, even if it still hurts sometimes. Even if there are moments when they wonder if they made the right choice. But what drives someone to accept that cost? What makes the price of invisibility worth paying in a world that rewards those who are seen? For many, it comes down to authenticity above all else. People who never post often have a highly developed sense of self. They know who they are. They know what they value. They have spent time getting to know themselves without the distortion of external feedback, and they have realized that social media has a way of warping both identity and values. When you present yourself to an audience, you inevitably start performing. You start thinking about what will be well received. You start curating and editing and filtering, not just your photos, but your entire identity. You start becoming a character instead of a person. And for some people, that performance feels like betrayal. It feels like abandoning who they really are in favor of who they think others want them to be. So they opt out. Not because they cannot play the game, but because they do not want to become a player. They want to remain themselves, unedited, unperformed, authentic in a way that posting would make impossible. They want to know that the person they are in private is the same person they would be in public, and the only way to guarantee that is to keep their private self private. There is something deeply countercultural about this stance in our current moment. We live in an era of personal branding, where individuals are encouraged to think of themselves as products to be marketed. Your online presence is supposed to be strategic. Your posts are supposed to serve your goals, whether professional or social. Every selfie is content. Every opinion is a potential engagement opportunity. The idea of simply existing, of living a life without documenting it for public consumption, has become almost radical, almost subversive, almost rebellious, and yet, that is exactly what silent watchers do every single day without fanfare or recognition. They live radically ordinary lives in a world obsessed with the extraordinary. They find meaning in the mundane without needing to share it with anyone. They celebrate small victories that no one else will ever know about and feel complete in that privacy. They have bad days without announcing them to the world. They have good days without performing happiness for an audience. They build identities that exist entirely for themselves, not for consumption or approval. This brings us to another crucial and often overlooked piece of the puzzle that helps explain their psychology. Control. People who never post often have a strong need for control over their own narrative. They understand, perhaps better than most, that once something is shared online, it no longer belongs entirely to them. It can be screenshot and sent to others without context. It can be misinterpreted by strangers who do not know them. It can be taken out of context and used against them. It can come back to haunt them years later when their views have changed. It can be dug up by future employers, future partners, future children. In an age where digital permanence is a real and documented concern, staying silent is a way of maintaining sovereignty over one's own story. Think about all the people who have regretted something they posted in a moment of emotion. Think about the careers that have been damaged by old tweets resurfacing at the worst possible time. Think about the relationships that have been strained by misinterpreted captions or comments that were meant to be funny but landed wrong. Think about the teenagers whose youthful mistakes will follow them forever because they were documented online. Silent watchers see all of this happening around them and think, why take that risk? Why hand over control of my narrative to algorithms and audiences I cannot predict or trust? This is not paranoia. This is pattern recognition. This is learning from observation. They have watched others make mistakes and learned from them without having to make those mistakes themselves. They have seen the consequences and decided that no amount of likes is worth that vulnerability. But control is only part of it. For many silent watchers, there is also a deep sense of privacy that goes beyond strategy or self-protection. It is almost spiritual in nature. It touches something primal and ancient. They believe that some things are sacred precisely because they are not shared. That the most meaningful moments in life lose something essential when they are broadcast to the world. That there is power in keeping certain experiences between themselves and the few people who are actually there. That intimacy requires boundaries, and those boundaries deserve protection. In ancient cultures, this idea was common and respected. Sacred rituals were often kept secret because sharing them would diminish their power. Mystery was valued. Personal struggles were worked through privately, not performed publicly for sympathy or attention. Intimacy required actual intimacy, not the illusion of it created by sharing with strangers who do not really know you. Silent watchers, in their own way, are keeping this ancient wisdom alive in a modern world that has largely forgotten it exists. Now here is where the tension reaches its peak. Because society does not make it easy to stay silent. Not anymore. Not in this age of constant connectivity and expected participation. The pressure to participate grows stronger every year, and the consequences of abstaining grow more significant with each passing month. Employers check social media profiles before making hiring decisions, and an empty profile can raise more red flags than a problematic one. Dating apps require photos and bios and clever opening lines, making romance itself dependent on digital performance. Networking happens online more than in person now, leaving those who abstain at a professional disadvantage. Friendships are maintained through group chats and tagged photos and shared memes, creating invisible walls around those who do not participate. Even government services are increasingly moving to digital platforms where presence is assumed and required. The infrastructure of modern life is built on the assumption that everyone is participating in the attention economy, and those who opt out find themselves swimming against an ever stronger current. The silent watcher exists in a world that was not designed for them. A world where being unseen is sometimes treated as suspicious. A world where having no social media presence makes people wonder what you are hiding. Where privacy is increasingly viewed as something you give up in exchange for convenience and connection. Where the question is not whether you will share your life online, but how much and with whom. This creates a genuine conflict, not just practical, but existential. The silent watcher must constantly navigate between their internal values and external expectations. They must explain themselves to people who do not understand. They must find ways to maintain connections without compromising their principles. They must build a life that works in a system that assumes everyone is playing by the same rules. They must defend choices that should not require defense. And yet, they persist. Against the current, against the cultural momentum, against the easy path of just going along with what everyone else is doing. They hold on to something that feels increasingly rare in our connected world, the right to be unknown, the right to live without an audience, the right to define themselves on their own terms without external interference. Why do they do it? What makes it worth the struggle and the awkward explanations and the occasional loneliness? The answer varies from person to person, but there are common threads that run through their explanations. Some value depth over breadth. They would rather have 5 close friends who truly know them than 500 acquaintances who know only their curated online persona. Some are protecting their mental health, having recognized that social media makes them feel worse, not better, and choosing to remove that influence from their lives. Some are simply following their nature, doing what feels right even when they cannot fully articulate why it feels right. But underneath all of these reasons is something even simpler, something almost childlike in its purity. They want to live their own lives. Not lives designed for consumption by others, not lives optimized for engagement metrics, not lives filtered through the question of how will this look to my followers, just lives, real, messy, beautiful, ordinary lives that belong entirely to them. And here is the resolution to this whole tension. Here is the quiet victory that silent watchers claim without ever announcing it, because announcing it would defeat the purpose entirely. They have figured out something that many people are only beginning to suspect after years of exhausting themselves on the treadmill of content creation. That the game of attention is not worth winning. That being seen is not the same as being known. That all the likes and followers in the world cannot fill the void that only genuine connection can fill. That the performance of a good life is not the same as actually having one. That presence matters more than proof. While others are running on the hamster wheel of content creation, posting and checking and posting again, always hungry for the next hit of validation, silent watchers have stepped off entirely. They have reclaimed something precious that many people have surrendered without realizing what they lost. Their time, their attention, their inner peace, their sense of self. They have remembered that before social media existed, people lived full and meaningful lives without any of it. People fell in love, built careers, raised families, had adventures, experienced joy and sorrow, all without documenting any of it for strangers. And they have decided to live that way still. This does not make them better than anyone else. It simply makes them different. Different in a way that deserves understanding, not judgment. Different in a way that might have something to teach the rest of us about what we have given up in exchange for connectivity. Because here is the truth that silent watchers know intuitively. You do not have to earn the right to exist by being visible. Your value does not depend on your reach or your follower count. The quality of your life cannot be measured in metrics or engagement rates. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do in a world screaming for attention is to simply stand still and be quiet. To exist without announcement. To live without documentation. If you are a silent watcher, know this. You are not missing out on life by not posting about it. You are not falling behind by choosing depth over display. You are not broken, antisocial, or out of touch with reality. You have simply made a different choice. A choice to prioritize what is real over what is seen. A choice to protect your inner world in an age of constant exposure. A choice to be present in your own life rather than narrating it for others. And that choice is valid. And if you are someone who does post, someone who enjoys sharing and connecting online and finds meaning in that participation, there is something here for you too. The silent watchers in your life are not judging you. They are not refusing to engage because they do not care about you. They are simply operating from a different set of values. Values that prioritize privacy, authenticity, and internal validation. Values that deserve respect, even if they are different from your own. The world needs both kinds of people. It needs those who share and those who observe, those who speak and those who listen, those who dance in the spotlight and those who watch from the edges. The ecosystem of human connection is richer for having both. Neither approach is superior. They are simply different paths to the same destination of a meaningful life. So here we are, at the end of our exploration into the minds of those who never post. We have traveled through their psychology, their motivations, their daily challenges, and their quiet victories. And what we have found is not emptiness or fear or inability or social awkwardness. What we have found is depth, intentionality, a fierce commitment to living on their own terms in a world that constantly pushes them to conform to its expectations, a quiet strength that does not need recognition to exist, a wisdom that comes from watching and learning and choosing a different path. The silent watchers will keep watching. They will keep thinking deeply about everything they observe. They will keep living their rich inner lives while the rest of the world scrolls past them unaware of what they are missing. And there is something beautiful about that. Something worth noticing. Something worth honoring. Something worth protecting in a world that seems determined to expose everything. Because in the end, the people who never post might just be the ones who understand something the rest of us are still trying to figure out. That the most meaningful parts of life are not the ones we share with the world. They are the ones we keep close to our hearts. Now, I want to hear from you. Are you a silent watcher? Or are you someone who loves to share their life with the world and cannot imagine doing otherwise? What is your relationship with social media? And has it changed over time as the platforms have evolved? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I love diving deeper into these conversations with you. If this video resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you do not miss the next deep psychological dive. Thanks for watching and for being here with me today. And until next time, keep thinking deeply.